The plan for everyone to get a COVID-19 booster shot has been put on hold. The FDA, however, has not made its final decision.
And a look at the reaction from the California governor recall election.
From the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at San Jose State University, your source for what's happening with a fresh perspective on today's issues. You're watching Update News.
Welcome to Update News. I'm Adrian Soriano.
And I'm Darwin Sekilayan. The deadline is soon approaching for San Jose State University students to prove they're fully vaccinated. The consequence for not getting the shots? You could be kicked out of school. Jared Liu has been taking the pulse of students on campus.
We have been talking to students on campus, and most students seem to be on board with this new policy. The clock is ticking for students at San Jose State University. They have a little more than a week left to prove that they are fully vaccinated. Most students we spoke with said they were happy to comply.
I think that the school requiring everyone to be vaccinated is definitely a good idea, because then we'll be able to have more in-person classes for those who learn easier in person. I think it definitely helps.
A good thing to do, because because this is a public place, you don't know who comes and who goes.
San Jose State University is not alone. The Chronicle of Higher Education found that more than 680 colleges and universities around the whole country are requiring students to get the COVID-19 vaccine. SJSU students must turn in their vaccine verification online by September 30th. If they do not, they will be dropped from all in-person and hybrid classes. They will also be denied access to campus facilities. There are exemptions allowed for medical or religious reasons, but not everyone thinks a religious exemption is okay.
I don't think it's right that it's you cannot take the vaccine for religious reasons, simply because I feel like that's too selfish.
If you are a fully online student, you still have to fill out the online forms and certify that you won't be coming onto the campus if you are not vaccinated. If you have not submitted your vaccination verification, that deadline is coming up very soon, September 30th. If you do not, you will be dropped from all in-person and hybrid classes on October 1st. San Jose State, Update News, Jared Liu.
The Food and Drug Administration has just agreed with its advisory panel. That means the agency recommends that pumping the brakes for now for a third COVID vaccine for everyone. Reporter Rodri Smith has the reaction.
It's still just the first step in this process, but people we talk to are pleased. That guidance from advisory panel is just the first step in this process, but for those who are opposed to getting a third shot, it's welcome news. For now, COVID-19 booster shots should just be for those 65 and older or people with underlying health problems. That's the decision from a panel of outside scientists who advise the Food and Drug Administration. The recommendation comes in sharp contrast to President Biden's call for universal booster shots as early as this week. Although some people are more than happy to take a booster shot, others say it's confusing. 20-year-old Hannah Junker explains that she is tired of the mandates consistently changing and is reluctant to getting the booster shot.
Fully vaccinated, and I trust that the government knew what they were talking about when the first one came out, and I don't really see the point in getting another one.
Although Junker is fully vaccinated and doesn't want to get the third dose, others do. 20-year-old Anthony Ochoa, who has an underlying health condition, says he would quickly jump at the opportunity to get a third shot.
Booster shot will help me, especially having an underlying health condition with asthma, so I'm most definitely going to get it for my health and for my family.
The U.S. Surgeon General says the administration has said it will follow the leads of the scientists.
We have always said that this initial plan would be contingent on the FDA and the CDC's independent evaluation. We will follow that evaluation and their recommendations. We will make sure our final plan reflects it.
The FDA isn't obligated to follow the advisory panel's advice. However, next week they will have a meeting discussing the topic of booster shots. I'm Rodri Smith, Update News. For now, the recommendation just applies to Pfizer, with the CDC meeting next week to vote on the Pfizer's approval. The approval for Moderna and Johnson & Johnson is expected later. In Grand Terrace, I'm Rodri Smith, Update News.
Governor Gavin Newsom gets to keep his job, but a week after he beat back the attempt to recall him, there are calls to reform the recall process. Critics point to the millions of dollars spent on the special election. More than 11 million California voters cast their ballot in the recall election. After a double-digit lead in the polls, Governor Gavin Newsom soundly defeated the recall attempt. 63% voted no, helping the state's 40th governor to keep his job. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says President Joe Biden reached out to congratulate Newsom on the victory.
The President told Governor Newsom he was honored to have campaigned for him, and they both agreed the focus must continue to be on crushing the virus and getting the economy back up and running.
Despite a resounding defeat, Newsom's chief opponent, Republican Larry Elder, vowed on election night that the fight wasn't over.
I can't think of anything that this man has done in the last 2 years that suggests he deserves another day in office. However, we recognize that we lost the battle, but we are certainly going to win the war.
The recall special election cost taxpayers $276 million. Critics have said the process is largely political and are calling for it to be changed.
It was just a huge ploy, by Republicans just trying to take advantage of the momentum of discontent against Newsom.
But San Jose State University political science professor Frederick Keeley says no to tampering with the process.
And the mere fact that somebody doesn't like the use of the recall, or the fact that a recall that they think is specious, qualified, I don't think that's reason to start tampering with one of the three most important powers that the people have. And the recall, which allows us to reach in and remove an elected official during their term, if we believe that their behavior is so egregious that we need to exercise that power. So I don't have trouble with the recall.
The election results will be certified next month. The next election for California governor takes place in November next year.
$1.6 million. That's how much San Jose State University has agreed to pay 23 former student athletes. The U.S. Department of Justice announced the settlement this week. The women were swim and dive students who accused former athletic trainer Scott Shaw of repeated, unwanted touching. The complaints began as far back as 2009. Following its own investigation, the university announced major changes earlier this year. They included a revamped Title IX officer and more sexual assault prevention training. It also included a sports medicine chaperone that students can request be present during therapy treatments. On its FYI page, the university said the money for the settlement will not come from student fees. And when we come back,
Up next, the Bay Area's response to the resettlement of Afghan refugees.
Almost 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, and some businesses are still hurting. Just ahead, how the unemployed are still struggling to find a job.
California is preparing to help more than 5,200 Afghan evacuees resettle. It is the largest number for any state so far, and Fremont is already home to the largest Afghan population in the U.S. But across the country, demonstrators have been protesting, accusing the U.S. of leaving Afghanistan destabilized after ending the 20-year military operation. In San Francisco, the United Afghan Association last month met last month at United Nations Plaza to air their grievances. With thousands at risk, they believe the government should be doing more to help. Currently, almost 24,000 refugees have arrived in the U.S. The Biden administration has a goal of getting 95,000 resettled by the end of 2022. New numbers this month from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics showed that the unemployment rate has dropped to 5.2%. Jobs are starting to open up again, but as Brianna Martinez reports, some job seekers are still having trouble finding work.
Those numbers don't tell the whole story. Even as more of the unemployed are finding work, some of those jobs are only part-time. This is leaving many of them underemployed.
Retail stores and restaurants are hiring, but thousands remain unemployed. Ariana Gonzalez is one of them, as she's hoping to get a job back in her field. She lost her job more than a year ago, and it's been tough.
June 30th, it's when my contract ended of 2020. And that was with the California Census statewide campaign.
Gonzalez says she's applied for multiple jobs she's qualified for, but keeps getting turned down. Some of the positions don't even offer health care, something important to her since she has a pre-existing condition.
That's also something that I have to take into consideration when applying for jobs. Is it worth putting my health at risk?
And she's not alone. Jake Northey is an event planner, and during the pandemic, lots of events were canceled.
Everything was pretty much shut down for about a year. Like when the NBA was going on, all the games were still happening, but they were either in the bubble, and when they returned, there was still no fans allowed in the building. So, there's not really many people that are able to show up to work every day when you have nobody to serve.
David Garcia, whose family owns a small catering business, says they're adapting to working with smaller groups, and it's brought his family closer together.
As long as there's not another restriction on public gatherings of certain sizes, then I think we should be fine.
That's one thing workers say they're learning. They will have to be more flexible so they can find a job and get back to work safely. In Sacramento, Brianna Martinez, Update News.
18 months into the pandemic, many San Jose State University students are finally back in the classroom. So how does in-person learning stack up to online classes for them? Reporter Sandow set out on campus to find out.
Our non-scientific poll shows that students are equally split between which method is better. But having in-person classes means that life on campus is going forward. No, actually, it's moving back to the way it was.
It may look pretty empty on San Jose State's campus, but many students are back in classrooms. Even with COVID protocols in place, some of them say they couldn't be happier.
It's really fun and lively.
More like a hands-on learner, so that's why I was chosen in person.
The online school didn't hit me as hard as it hit other people, but I still prefer the in-person setting.
Some students told us it was harder to focus with online learning and easier to get distracted.
Most of my classes are in person, and much better than how it was in Zoom, because you're just looking at like a blank black screen. Just felt uninvolved, and I kept multitasking, kept doing like laundry or cooking while the other professor was speaking. So I felt like in class I had more accountability.
But others said learning by Zoom worked well for them.
My online classes in high school kind of sucked. Alright, so it was mainly just like Canvas and that's it, right? But online classes here is more of, you get to kind of interact more. People don't really like shut their cameras off in Zoom, and you can just like actually like see them and interact with them, and they actually reply. And it's not like dead in chat.
And while classes are back in session, some students say they miss the return of activities that are part of the college life. They long for the return of sporting and musical events.
I wish there was more music-related stuff, like there was the Swing in the Park thing last week. I wish there were a few more rock shows and just local music. I wish the campus promoted local music a bit more.
Some restrictions are easing up, but it looks like it'll be a while before the large-scale events come back. At San Jose State, Sandow, Update News.
When we come back.
year at Solo for America Ice, San Jose State's club ice hockey team will be playing for the first time in nearly 2 years. Up next, we'll show you some of the preparation for the first set of games.
For more than a year, performances at the Hammer Theater have all been live streamed. You could only view them on your computer screen. But Denise Billones will tell us that is all about the change.
We've learned that the theater department is working on a new COVID protocols that will allow them to have in-person performances sooner than you might think. Like lots of other things in our world, the pandemic took its toll on live stage plays at the Hammer Theater. San Jose State University's theater department has struggled to adjust to the new norms. The actors and stage crew had to follow strict COVID protocols.
So last year, we could not have audiences, but we did do 3 shows. We live streamed the shows, and we were all trained. We took COVID training, on how to safely have students rehearse live and faculty and other people be in our rehearsal space, and the university filmed them in the Hammer. And so we followed, social distancing, masking, all of the COVID protocols, and we did that. So the protocols are fine. We know what we are doing, and we're able to keep the students safe. And if there is anything that happens, we understand how to, isolate, identify, contact trace, to make sure everybody's happy and safe.
But things are about to undergo a big change. This fall, the theater department will be performing Marisol at the Hammer Theater in November. Circle Mirror Transformation is another production in the making. It will debut in December.
The plan is for an actual live audience to be able to come in and sit down. They'll still have masks on, but they will be in the same room with us, which I'm very excited. I am kind of nervous about it because there was a certain amount of comfort that came with acting and not seeing other people in the room, because I've only done one pre-year play that was actually in person before these shows, and you can definitely feel the presence of people, so it might add a little more pressure. Live streaming had its own pressure, so it'll just be different. We'll see how it pans out.
The actors say they look forward to hearing applause again.
Having an audience to see you and to watch you, they just give you that extra energy, and you can feel the audience's energy, and that just changes your performance. An audience can definitely dictate a performance. Like if an audience is not being responsive, that can kind of make the actors feel like what are we doing wrong? Or it just feels like the audience isn't there. They're not present with us. They're not engaging. So when you do have an engaging audience, it feels like a good show. You get this rush that, you're having this moment with these audience members, and they're there watching you, and you're there performing for them, and it just feels kind of surreal. It's pretty crazy, but you feel that connection with the audience.
Goodbye, world.
Marisol will run on November 12 to 20, 2021. Circle Mirror Transformation will run on December 2 to 4, 2021. These performances will both be at the Hammer Theater, running over the weekend. Tickets will be sold online and on front. For students, tickets cost $10, while general admission costs $20. In San Jose, Denise Billones, Update News.
San Jose State Club Hockey returns this fall since the pandemic began, and the team has numerous new faces going into the season. Jonathan Shaver has more on that.
The San Jose State Club ice hockey team returns this fall after being absent all of last year due to the pandemic.
But with many players from the 2019 season gone, how will the new team prepare this season with an almost brand new roster? After successful tryouts, team practices are underway every Monday and Wednesday as skaters get back into the swing of things with the season approaching. With a long off-season, players are excited to be back on the ice.
I'm pretty excited. You know, we got a good squad here this year. I mean, there's so many question marks with the season and other players and other teams. So when it comes to this season, I think I'm just happy to get back on the ice and happy to be around the team.
Since most club sports were halted last season because of the pandemic, all the transfer students who joined the team are in their first season of play. And the big question, how will the new guys build chemistry with the 5 remaining players from 2 seasons ago? One of them, senior Jimmy Wooten, who is in his 2nd season with the Spartans, but has yet to play a game.
It's been more than a year and a half for me. I haven't played real competitively in a couple years, so I was excited to get into it last year, and then everything got canceled, so I'm just trying to use that energy for this year.
Despite having a retooled roster, chemistry is being built as each practice goes on.
Well, I got the grizzled old veteran as my D partner, Ryan Ellis. He's the old man of the group. But with the new guys coming back, the guys who missed their season last year, you know, I think it's just exciting just to get the guys back together, feel good, be on the ice, gaining chemistry. I think just more ice time together. I mean, this is our 3rd week of practice, so the more time we have together as a team on and off the ice, the better we'll be on the ice. The Spartans were supposed to open up their season against the University of California, Berkeley, but those games have been canceled. Now the Spartans' first games of the season will be October 8th and the 9th against the University of California, Los Angeles. In San Jose, Jonathan Schaefer, Update News.
And now for the week ahead.
Check out the Spirit of Abstraction exhibit presented by Bay Area artist David Liu on the 2nd floor of the King Library. The exhibit is currently open through October 1st.
Ever thought about creating your own podcast? Come to the Adobe Audition Podcasting Workshop. The sessions are from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. beginning on September 29.
On September 30th, CAPS is hosting an Overcoming Procrastination workshop from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. You'll learn about why people procrastinate and identify your own personal reasons.
And that does it for this week's edition of Update News.
For all of us here, thank you for joining us and see you next week.